California people get each other, you know?
Yeah, you guys have both been to Coachella.
No, I've actually never been to Coachella.
He was a good guy, but he wasn't my guy, which then made it turbulent. You know what I'm saying? If you're not with the right person, it's going to be like this if it's not who God has for you.
I'll make that meal for him, and it's like whatever it was just to keep him to not leave me.
Yeah.
I did not marry that Kate.
Yeah,
Jason
did not marry that version of me. He's like, when do you cook?
You're obedient and then God gives you whatever you want. Am I right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And all the ladies and men said amen.
When you know that you're Noble, the daughter of a king, it changes who you date, how you spend your weekends, who you spend your time with. God is better than the guy that you so desperately are changing for in order to be chosen from.
She thought if she could just lose the weight and feel beautiful, she'd finally be loved. So she did lose the weight, and she did get a lot of guys that were not that great until she finally ended up with a guy that was godly-ish. And then the Lord told her to break off their engagement. And now she has been healed, and her story of healing from body image and a broken engagement is going to touch you guys today. I'm so excited to bring on my friend today, Nicoletta Bradley, to share her testimony. So Nicoletta, welcome, girl.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
That was so excited. What did you think of that hook? I was locked in.
I mean, I'm here for it. Let's go, guys. I'm so impressed. I need to start doing that on my podcast.
Let's see what happens.
I was on the edge of my seat. That was so good.
Thank you.
I didn't even know what you were going to say about my own story. I was like, what is she going to tell me?
You're like, wait, who is this? I want to watch this maybe.
You're like, that sounds like a great podcast. Oh, that's me.
Whoa, wait. Let's put you on the spot. All right, we're jumping right in.
Come on.
Who would you pick to play you in that biopic right there?
In that movie?
Oh, gosh, I love Rachel McAdams. I think she is the most stunning, radiant human in Hollywood.
I can see that. I actually can so see her playing you.
And the voice, the scratchy voice too.
Yeah, the scratchy voice.
So blonde Rachel McAdams.
Of course. I mean, not the girl from Mean Girls, but The Vow, isn't she in that one? The Notebook, Rachel
About
McAdams.
Time. Did you ever watch About Time?
I've watched all of them. She's fantastic. I love her.
Yeah. All right, girl. Well, we recently got some time together. We go back a few years. Our paths connected through social media, mutual friends, and then we've gotten to meet a few times in real life. And it's especially this last trip when I got to see you in Colorado, I was like, I just love this girl so much. I already loved you, but we had never spent that much one-on-one time together. So your story is powerful. Your voice for the Lord is powerful. And I feel like the Lord has put a mantle on you when it comes to body image and healing from that, and talking about how to be confident in who you are. And you are still actively single. So we're going to dive into some of that, but you are still carrying it so well. So can you tell our people a little about you?
Yeah, girl. Well, I truly was thinking about this the other day, Kate. I go, how did we get connected? But then I know we talked about it in Colorado, but it was just fun to reminisce of just how cool the Lord is, that he will really intersect the right path. So I was encouraged. But a little bit about me. I'm originally from Santa Barbara, California. So I know my California girl, and it's probably how we connected, honestly. Because you just California people get each other, you know?
Yeah, you guys have both been to Coachella.
No, I've actually never been to Coachella.
That's what everyone thinks. But what I do now is I am a podcast host, and I run a nonprofit called Noble. So Noble is a fitness, faith, and body image ministry that truly came out of my really long battle of an eating disorder. So we put on fitness retreats all across the country for women to restore the Genesis 1 narrative of being naked and unashamed. And so that really is my heartbeat. I'm so passionate about women because we see that 91% of women are struggling with body image, and women as young as 4 are girls that are getting out of diapers are going to their moms in a recent article saying, I'm fat and I need to lose weight. And the enemy is just winning like crazy in this area. And so if you're listening to this and you want more, I have the podcast called Call Her Holy, and we talk a lot about body image as well. But just, man, if I can push back darkness in this area, that was truly the goal for the rest of my life.
It's so powerful. I still have not yet to really meet somebody in my life who hasn't struggled or is currently struggling with body image. I think just universally, I'm a postpartum mom now. So I can't really claim that anymore. It's been a year, but anyway, through that, plus my earlier years of, I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, Nicoletta, but earlier in my dating life, I was a serial dater. And while I was in an abusive relationship, I actually was on diet pills and was so skinny. I was like 116 pounds. I'm 5'7". So that was not healthy for me. And JJ's looked at pictures. He's like, oh my goodness, you don't look good. But I used to glorify the amount that I was so skinny. I was only sleeping 4 hours, fighting with this guy all the time. It was the most unhealthy I've ever been. But I was so set on looking a certain way because that would make me feel more valued and have guys, this guy want to be with me because he constantly cheated behind my back. And so definitely have had my fair share of body image struggles. And even those diet pills I was on, I tried a few, they would cause me panic attacks and it would actually leave me just so broken. And then for years after that, I actually gained a lot of weight. I started having autoimmune issues. I got off the pills because they were really causing issues with my heart. Okay. And I got off the pills. I gained a lot of weight and I actually started to really become so insecure because it was 15, 20 pounds heavier than where I was at that point that I had told you. And so then I went into deep insecurity, so much so, Nicoletta, that I couldn't even really go out for dinner with my friends unless I thought I looked okay, because I was so afraid that they would have cameras and that they would take pictures and that they would post those photos. And so unless I felt that I looked good that day, I would not go out and see people. And then I was a person, if we did go out, I had to look at every photo and be like, no, this is the only photo you could use. Right. I had a blog earlier on, over 10 years ago, every single photo on that blog, I manually edited to make myself look skinnier. And so this just went on and on for me. So just wanted to share a little bit of that story for myself because I rarely share that, but it was a deep struggle that I had that I really had to start reconciling. And I wouldn't even say I'm fully reconciled. I still struggle with things, but would love to dive into your story because it's so powerful how you help people really love the vessel that God has created in them. So we'll get into the body image stuff. I'd love to start with you with your story in younger years, when you weren't accepted. How did rejection shape you leading into your high school years?
Yeah, gosh. Well, first of all, thanks for sharing that, Kate. I know that's so vulnerable. And I just want to raise my hand and say me too. The enemy, this world is his playground and he's destroying women. The fact, and I say this all the time, but body image issues is the number one way that I think the enemy makes women isolate and literally dim who they've made them to be. And so truly that's a lot of my story. So I remember I was the statistic. I think it was third grade. I mean, my counselor, after going through years of eating disorder counseling, said I was the youngest case that she had ever met. And that was in 2010. And now stats are saying that girls are coming out at 4. And so I remember in third grade, I went to a teeny tiny Christian school and we had 12 kids in my class. And so that's not a lot to choose from. And I remember going, man, why are these 12 kids not wanting to be my friend? Why are they not wanting to accept me? So I tried to be a tomboy. I tried to be funnier. I tried to be more outgoing, just all the things. And none of it worked. And then I was like, okay, the one thing I haven't tried is changing my body. Therefore, that must be the problem. And the solution is losing weight. And then maybe there's hope and there's a chance. But I mean, I didn't know what I was doing in third and fourth grade up until junior high. And I remember that rejection fueled this deep, deep belief in me of that if I'm not thin, I'm not loved. Because when I got to high school, I remember and honestly, it was a stronghold. I remember saying to myself, I will be the most popular girl in high school and I'll do whatever I need to do to get there. I just won't have sex. That was my one rule, and I won't do drugs. And I just remember, believing to my core that my body is the means of acceptance and the means of love. And so high school was spent trying to be popular, trying to be approved of. And it wasn't until my junior year of high school that a guy looked at me and was like, yeah, guys have just said if you were thinner, you'd be hotter. And I remember it was everything I believed. It was literally a guy looking at the little third grade me being like, hey, you're actually right. Like, you aren't crazy. You were right the whole time. And that's where I hired a trainer the next day, started running, started working out, and I lost 20 pounds in one summer. Got into junior year of high school, and that's where truly everything started to change. And the
Wow.
belief was actually proven because guys that never looked in my direction suddenly wanted to date me.
Wow.
Wow. Well, okay. So quick question. Why was it, what did you say? Like, if I'm thin, then
I'm loved.
what was that? Okay. If I'm thin. So that was third grade.
I was third grade. That was the stronghold that I literally feel like the enemy was like, get her. If we can get her to believe this, it'll screw
Why
her for
that
life.
one? Like, and why thinness and why body? Like, what was the root? Like, how did that even?
Yeah. How did that sprout? Was there influences of that?
Yeah, I think that it was one, like I said, it was the only thing I didn't try. Like, I changed everything. Like, I became the tomboy. I wore the board shorts. I wore the bro t-shirt and a backwards hat. I tried to be funnier. I tried to be quieter. I tried to be louder. And it was like the one thing I hadn't tried was maybe changing the shape of my body, because I tried the makeup. I tried to be girly. I tried all the things. And I grew up in a home that, bless my mom, she just wanted us to be healthy, but in a stricter home with food. So we grew up with this food is bad, this food is good. I remember like in 7th grade, my mom looked at me and I was like, I'm having a really bad day. And she was like, well, then, honey, why don't you go for a run? And it wasn't that she was saying go for a run because you're fat, but I interpreted that as when you are sad or when you are rejected, you go exercise, and exercise equals burning calories, and burning calories means weight loss, which equals love. And so it was just like all these messages around me. And I think also with 12 kids in my class, there's 4 girls. Like, there's literally nothing to compare to. And the one girl that guys wanted to be friends with, the only thing different from her and I was that she had a smaller body. And so I immediately associated, I've tried everything else, but the one thing you have against me is the smaller waist. So that must be the solution.
Wow. And then at 16, it was like cemented.
Yep. And it was like, I knew it. And this is crazy. I thought about this today. I feel like I fished for somebody to tell me that up until I was 16. Like, I was totally the girl that was like, I'm so fat, just to like hear, no, you're good. Or for somebody to say like, no, you're not. So then I could actually hear it and be like, I knew it. Now I'm going to fix it. No one had actually verbalized it.
Wow.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
100%.
So you lose the weight, you're going through this body image stuff. Guys are not interested in you, and it worked, quote, but obviously for the wrong reasons. What was the cost of getting that kind of attention, and how long did it take for you to realize like, this isn't really serving me, this is more sabotaging me?
Yeah, so that was really where things started getting worse. So I just realized, oh my gosh, like, I'm working out and eating healthy and all these guys love me. What if I just don't eat anything at all? And that's where it dipped into anorexia. It dipped into bulimia. It dipped into a slight binge eating disorder. And sabotaged my life. Like, the lie that I believed in 3rd grade, the enemy just started to run with it. He's like, man, like, think about you would have even more power if you didn't eat. You would have even more acceptance if you even shrunk. And like, my body got so small, but it affirmed it. It was like, you're right. Like, truly, I am type A, tunnel vision girly, and I became one of the most popular girls in my town. And I felt powerful. I felt worthy, because here's the thing. I became, in my mind, worshipped. And what sabotaged me is that no one else can be worshipped except for Jesus. And so I suddenly felt like, oh, all these guys like me. I have power, but I was miserable. Like, the thing that the enemy, and always like my whole curriculum is based on Genesis 1-3, because the enemy was dangling the apple in front of me saying, just take a bite and it will satisfy you. And what do we see? They covered up in shame. Their lives were destroyed. And I feel like that's exactly what I was living in.
Well, okay. So walk me through that. Like, cause that was a lot what you just unpacked. Really walk me through 16, 17 years old. You start becoming skinny. What did your eat? Like, was it overnight your eating habit change? Did it gradually get worse and worse? And then walk me through that kind of popularity, because it obviously, like, the boys are liking you and you're getting chased after, pursued more and more and more, 20, 21, 22 years old. Like, really paint that picture and walk us through that escalation.
Yeah. So, I'm very disciplined. And so when the guy said that to me, I hired a trainer the next day. And I remember she started weighing me. she started telling me, okay, like, here's your meal plan, go. And I like followed it like it was the Bible. So I did not go outside of her meal plan. She was a bodybuilder. Like, she was a fitness competition bodybuilder. So you can imagine what I was eating, nothing. And I was
Chicken and
running
rice.
6
Yeah.
plus miles every day, lifting weights 2 to 3 days a week, and just like starving myself. And so then it was, I got to school, and that was the beginning of junior year. Guys started liking me. And so then I slipped into not eating anything. I remember, I'm not going to give details because I don't think that's helpful of like exactly what I ate for any girl that might be listening to this on the verge of that. But I remember like it slowly got worse and worse and worse to the point that it was, I couldn't maintain it anymore. So what really started getting hard was you can only starve yourself for so long. Like, you literally cannot maintain starvation mode for a long time. And so that's when I started binging. And that's when I started like starving, overeating, and then throwing up. So where, I mean, we're going to just transition into college, is that I finally got to college. And I remember freshman year was the first time that I wasn't in my controlled environment. So when I grew up in California, I had my systems, I had my routines, I had my parents' fridge that was healthy and controlled. And then I got to college and hell broke loose. Like, I didn't have my running trails. I didn't have my normal restaurants. I didn't have the control of my mom making me dinner. And I gained 30 pounds in 3 months as a freshman in college. And so
wow.
what I started highlighting was, oh no, like, when you're thin, people like you, they approve of you, you're worthy. I mean, I was on homecoming court. I was tennis captain. I was on student government. And it wasn't my weight that got me those things, but it was such a stark line in the road of like, why did everything start to happen when I lost the weight to then when I got to college and gained all of it back and more, because that's just what happens with diets. Every ounce of my security, every ounce of my self-worth, and every ounce of my confidence around men, around others was completely stripped, to the point that I remember freshman year of college, face down on the floor, crying out to God saying, I want to kill myself. And that's where I heard the Lord. That's a big part of my story, but I literally heard the Spirit overtake me, and I heard the whisper that said, Nicoletta, you're going to go through every type of eating disorder, because one day I will use your story to help every type of girl. And it was in that moment where my identity was stripped, my worth was stripped. I didn't even know if it was worth living, because my identity was so built on the sinking sand of a thin body. And that's when I said, fine, then I'll fight this thing. If you're somehow going to make this worth it, I'll fight this thing. But I was miserable. Like, everything was stripped from me when I gained weight. But once again, self-fulfilling prophecy. I wasn't going out. Like you said, Kate, I was hiding in baggy clothing. I wasn't going to mixers as a new sorority girl. I was isolating, naked, and just ashamed, as it says in Genesis.
Wow.
Yeah. I have a question for you. I want to continue at college and post-college, but there's probably a lot of girls listening, and let's say the girl is 30, 32, you're 32, and she's like, no, I literally do think that guys are not interested because of my body. And I am convinced that if I lost weight, then they'd be interested in me because I see it in front of me. There are so many girls that are just like, but guys, they would never, because they hear my story of like how I wasn't initially as into JJ, and they're like, that's awesome. But that is only, girls are the only ones that do that. They give guys a shot that they're not overly like attracted to at first. But guys, they'll never look at me because, you know, of my weight specifically. And I'm thinking of some specific people, even in my DMs constantly about this. So like, well, that will never work for me because of my size. Guys just won't look at me. I would love for you to speak to that person for a second, especially the woman. And JJ, maybe you can speak to guys on the reverse side of that. But yeah, what would you say to that girl?
Gosh, I've had a lot of these conversations. So I think obviously I'd start off with, I'm so sorry we live in a broken world. And like, I always joke around, like with the Hunger Games, it's like, remember who the real enemy is. Like, our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against the higher rules and the principalities of this world. And I would look at her and say, I'm so sorry, because I always say it, body image is to women as porn is to men. And the porn industry is affecting how men view you. And if we didn't have social media, if we didn't have culture, if we didn't have the father of lies ruling over the world right now, men would not know that your weight is unattractive. We would not know, because the enemy has said, man, let's make the body that only 2% of women naturally have the goal, because no one will ever have it. And a lot of times weight gain is a result of trying to lose weight. And so what we're seeing is these women in this toxic cycle of, I need to lose weight in order to be loved. I need to lose weight in order to be loved, which then their body becomes autoimmune, struggling and hurt. And my body, there's a lot more to my story that we'll go into. My body is dealing with huge repercussions because of the years of abuse that I put it through. And I would say, I'm sorry, but I think the second thing I would say is wait for a man who has God's eyes or stay single. Like genuinely, I believe this, and just an encouragement for a story. So I remember about a few years ago, I got asked out by a guy who was very short, and I am 5'1". So when I say he was almost near my height, he was almost near my height, but he was a God-fearing man. And I literally begged God. I said, God, my eyes have been broken my whole life. They have been broken because I have wanted to look like a model, but I've also wanted to date a model. My eyes are broken and I need eye surgery. And so give me eye surgery. And I remember he picked me up on a date and I was like, oh my gosh, you're so short. But when he dropped me back off and he asked me out again, I said, in Jesus' name, when he picks me up next time, let me have your eyes and not mine. And when that man picked me up, I never saw him as short again. And so I say that to say is that God can do the miracle of sight. He can give someone new eyes. But I would say to the girl, I'm so sorry. Honor your body. Like a lot of times our body's size is a result of actually not honoring our body. A lot of our time, our body is a result of trying to take control, thinking that we're in control of earning love. Get that right, while also praying that no one enters into your life unless they have God's eyes and not their own eyes. Because trust me, you want a man that is so submitted to Jesus that his eyes are drawn to what God's eyes are attracted to. But I also don't want to sit here and say, like, you do have responsibility. You do have responsibility to honor the temple that you're in. And so I do know women that are like, yeah, but I'm sitting on the couch and eating potato chips and like, no guy's ever choosing me. It's like, man, like there's some ownership in that. Honor your body, for it is on loan. You're the temple of the Holy Spirit. And then pray for God to give somebody his eyes and not the world's eyes, and trust that it's better to be single than to have a guy. Because that's another big part of my story.
So good, actually. And what you're saying, man, it's just like reflecting on what I shared earlier. That's exactly what happened to me. It's like once I tried to take control from those diet pills, and then it led to autoimmune condition because of stress on those diet pills, all the things, and how I was mistreating my body for so many years. Then I gained a bunch of weight, and then I'm like stressed about the fact that I gained a bunch of weight, and now I'm feeling worse. I was feeling awful during that time. And you know, that it's like a self-fulfilling, I can't lose weight no matter what I do because I'm so tightly wound on it that honestly, it was just getting worse and worse and worse. And the inflammation in my body was out of control. And so, yeah, until I started, there was also other elements of like toxic relationships. And I remember one time I literally did get out of a toxic relationship. I lost a bunch of weight because it was like this toxic thing in my life where I was so worried about what I looked like in front of this guy. And as soon as I left that, this is another toxic relationship, not the abusive guy, a different one. And as soon as I left that, like my body felt free and it just like lost weight. And it wasn't because I was starving myself in the breakup. It was like, I just like, it was free.
It wasn't a revenge body.
No, it wasn't. I wasn't going to the gym. I was doing nothing.
You weren't a Stairmaster girly for 45 minutes.
I wasn't. It was just like, it literally just came off. I was like, wow, it just showed me so much too of how like, so many of those unhealthy patterns can really just impact the weight in our bodies, especially as women.
Speaking of women and men, I know you had an encouragement for the men too, but how often now are you experiencing, like just on the side, like guys saying, hey, me too? Like, and I was just looking up some statistics. It's like tripled over the past 2 or 3 decades, men who struggle with body image. And it's about a third of people who actually do struggle with eating disorders. A third are men.
Yeah. But you wouldn't know because it's hidden and it's shameful. In the same way that pornography is shameful for women, body image is shameful as men. I'm telling you, it's very similar. The stats are very similar of those two things. And I think, gosh, was it 1 in 5? Or is it 1 in 10 now? It's either 1 in 5 men struggle with body image or 1 in 10 men do. And
I think it's probably 1 in 5.
It's 1 in 5. It's gone up. And I was just reading in Australia, it's gone from 15% to 35% over the past 20 years.
Wow.
Which is significant, but it makes total sense when it is amazing to see. Just think about this. You're scrolling through your Instagram feed. right after this interview for 5 minutes. For me, I see like a men's fitness guy, and that photo of that guy with a just shredded, jacked, whatever. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's had to cut for 6 months. He hasn't drank water in 4 days. And on top of that, they've photoshopped it. And that's the image I'm seeing.
And like wanting to,
as
your inspiration.
And it's so insane to think about.
Right.
That process is now what I think is my goal.
Well, it's a salvation story. You're literally being sold a salvation story. And the only salvation story is what Jesus did for you on the cross.
Yeah.
You're being sold like, hey, if you just get the body, life is good. You're going to be satisfied.
Just have this.
Exactly. But Lord's like, I'm the only one that can save you.
Yes.
Amen. It's the same for guys and girls for sure. And the reality that I love that you hit and didn't just skip over is there is a confidence that comes, but it's a fake one and it's never enough. Like there is a result.
Oh my gosh, it's so conditional. That would be the word I put on it. Conditional.
Yeah.
Like me loving myself on the days that my stomach was flat and I was less inflamed versus not loving myself and not wanting to go out the days where I was puffier and like didn't like how I looked. Like so conditional.
Yeah. Well, let's transition. I love that aspect and I love what you do. I didn't realize as a man how, especially in the church, how many women, I heard this from a pastor, charismatic pastor's wife, who you would never have thought would be struggling. She was like, I don't know if you've known this, but I've never really felt comfortable in my own skin and body. And he was just shell shocked. And I was too, as like an extension. It is one of the most well-kept secret struggles for women, especially in the church. So I just love what you do. Now, walk us through, okay, so you have that amazing experience on the floor. Did it change instantly? And then post-college, you joined the Porch. You're in Dallas, Texas. I'm assuming your life starts to change a little bit more and more month by month, year by year, as you surround yourself. Was it as you surrounded yourself with community? Like what happened?
Yeah, so I went to Texas Christian University, and at the time, my counselor told me,
Me
"Go
too,
Frogs.
girl. TCU.
Go Frogs, baby. Let's go. Froggies." And at the time, it was in the top 10 eating disorder colleges in the country, according to my counselor. Yeah.
Oh my. I did not know that.
Yeah, girl. And so that was the environment that I was in for 4 years. And so I was in intense eating disorder counseling to where when I graduated college, my goal was I want to enter into the fitness industry and change it. So I became a spin instructor. I became a personal trainer and got really plugged into my church. And so I would say that yes, community helped, but it's just such an internal battle that I needed like psychological help. So I continued with counseling, all that kind of stuff. And during that time, I got really plugged into Watermark Church called The Porch. And I met this guy who, back to like the very beginning of my story, a lot of my life, I just was like that little girl that always wanted a fairy tale. I wanted I thought like, oh my gosh, like if I get the body, then I'll get the cute guy and then I'll have the great marriage and I'll have the great family and then everything in life will go really well. And so I remember when I entered into the Porch team, there was a new guy that joined the team and I thought he was hands down the most attractive guy I'd ever seen. And I just remember thinking there's no way that someone like him would like someone like me, because a lot of eating disorder stuff is just low self-worth. And I remember when he asked me out, I was like jaw on the floor because I could not believe it. And so he and I started dating. We dated for 2 years and we ended up getting engaged. And during those 2 years of dating, I completely lost myself, full transparency, because I was so shocked that someone as good looking and successful and Christian would like someone that wasn't the same weight that I was in high school, because my firm belief was the thinnest I've ever been is the only time I've been worthy, even though it's like crazy because I was also the most miserable I'd ever been. Yet the enemy made me believe, like, oh man, if you just get back to that. And I remember I changed everything about myself for this guy, changed everything about myself, and it landed me a ring. That's the thing. But it was not what the Lord had for me.
Well, let's pause. Okay, hold on. What did you say at the beginning? Like, you could not believe he asked you out. talk to me a little bit about that idea of self-worth. Did you know that kind of like low idea of self-worth existed, and you just looked for so much validation in guys and dating? Was that kind of like sneaking underneath the surface? How did that get drawn out? And what's the consequence? Because that is one of the most common things I see is you see a guy with a girl or a girl with a guy, and you're just like, wait a second, like, what are you doing here? Like, you could do so much better. I'm not just talking like physically, I'm talking like emotionally and spiritually. Like, why do you think is this what you think you deserve? Like, that's always been maybe a little bit more confusing for people from the outside looking in.
Totally. I was never the girl that was boy. Like, it was never like me chasing from guy to guy. But I kind of going back to a lot of my story was like, I wanted the best, but I didn't believe that I would get the best unless I was the best. And so it was low self-worth in the fact that whoever I dated and his level of physical attraction was a measure of how physically attractive I was.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
So, but emotionally and spiritually, it didn't really matter. You were more focused on the physical attraction first. And if he's hot and he likes me, then obviously that means I'm beautiful and I'm willing to trade off a little bit of the emotional and spiritual.
That was me in high school and college, 100%. Sorry, yeah. High school and college was like, who's the hottest guy in the room? Competition mode. Let's go. I'm going to get him. That was my mode. That was like, because if I can get the hottest guy in the room, that must mean that I'm hot. When I graduated college, that's when I really dove into my faith. But then once again, in the porch world, you just look for you just assume everyone is godly because we're serving at a church. Godly. You know what I mean? So I went after or desired, who's the cutest guy here? Oh my gosh, like the cutest guy on the porch team likes me. And by then, it's not that a faith and emotional, all that stuff wasn't important to me. It's almost just like we're in a church, so we're good. You know what I mean? Like my options are
fill
safe.
In the blanks.
Yes. And so, yes, my standards were not settling. I don't think I would ever say I settled, but it was my low self-worth that drove who I wanted to be with physically.
Yeah. We teach this actually exactly what you're saying in our program, School of Dating, because people say, why is it that the guys that I don't want are always the ones that like me, but the guys that I do want are always the ones like I can't seem to land. And I really believe that there is like this science behind we want unavailable things. And I'm not just talking about emotionally unavailable guys, but the guy that every other girl wants that we think is, and we feel because he's like unavailable, and probably lots of other people want him. And he's like maybe serving at church or he's on the worship team, we fill in invisible attributes. So I'll use the example of like Taylor Swift tickets. So when I did want to go to the Eras tour, okay, yes, confession to everybody. These tickets were like Kate. So unavailable, right? Like once it was blowing up, like once the concert came to LA, like I was like, I can't find a ticket. And I was so willing, Nicoletta, I drove to the stadium and was sitting outside trying to get a ticket. And I thought they would just dip, the night of the conference, they kept going up and up and up. And it was $1,000. And I'm like, JJ, I'm going to do it. I have to have this ticket, because they're I filled in these invisible attributes that if I got this thing, it would be like the best night of my life. If I got this thing, it would give me value. I could show everybody else that I went to this concert. There will never be a concert like this ever again. I fill in all these invisible attributes to this unattainable thing because I could not afford $1,000 a ticket for Taylor Swift. But I think the same thing happens. It works in marketing like that, but the same kind of thing happens where we assign invisible attributes to things that like everybody else wants, or that we think like by having this thing, it's going to make me feel amazing. And I am, he's got to be godly because it's like the thing that everybody else wants. It's got to be this, that, and the other. The other part of it that you also touched on, which is huge, and I've seen this over and over, is when we have a low self-esteem in ourselves, we look for somebody else who is quote above us, especially when it comes to attraction, so that if we land that, then it means that I'm like an 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10. I currently think I'm like a 5 out of 10, but if I land this guy that's an 8 out of 10 in my mind, okay, then I'm like an 8 out of 10. Okay. And then I don't actually have to deal with the fact that I actually feel like a 5 out of 10 and feel like I'm ugly, because if this guy likes me, it disproves that like I am ugly. Of course, then I'm beautiful because this guy likes me, but it's so temporary, because when a guy like that does actually like you, if he ever does, then, it's never going to fix a deep wound, because looking for that validation in another person actually is completely overlooking the wound that you have internally. And so I'm like, I've seen it so often though, where people have this standard of like, I have to date a guy of this kind of attraction. And I've shared different people in the past. I'm like, what about this guy? And they're like, and when I was single, it would have been like a guy that I actually dated who just didn't work out, but we were still friends. And I was like, what about this guy? And I remember a friend of mine being like, Kate, what? I would never date him. Like, he's not like attractive. And I was like, well, yes, he is. Like objectively, he's an attractive guy. But what I realized was her standard was, like David Beckham standard, And so because of that, I'm like, oh yeah, this guy isn't David Beckham standard. But the only reason she wanted that is because internally she felt like that she wasn't beautiful on her own. So she had to get that so that it would validate that she actually is beautiful and not ugly. All right, I went on a TED Talk, but I just love that part of your story. So you met this guy and you were like, I got to get this guy. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that my worth was still like, I was still the little girl in third grade saying, pick me, choose me, love me, show me that I'm pretty enough, show me that I'm worthy enough, show me that I'm skinny enough in order to be loved. And so when he came into my life, I just was like, oh my gosh, I can't let this go. Like, you are everything I've created in my head, and I will do whatever I need to do to keep this, because you make me look good. You make me look beautiful, because if I have you on my arm, that must mean that I'm doing something right. And I just remember like really truly changing things. I mean, I would tell him that this is what I want in my future, even though I was like, I don't want that in my future. But it was also the low self-worth of, if it's not him, he'll be nobody. I believe to my core that if it's not him, he's the most attractive guy that I've ever like dated. So if it's not him, I'm going to either be single forever, or God's going to give me second best. And so let me cling to him out of control. And I was miserable. Like, I was miserable, and it's crazy, and which we'll get to down the road, but seeing the way that I date now is so wildly different than how I dated then, because I can say confidently, like, I literally had the ring on my finger of the guy that I thought I wanted to marry, and it wasn't it. So clearly my picker is off. Clearly attraction is not the main thing that matters. So Lord, once again, kind of what I was saying, give me your eyes and not mine, because my eyes are broken and it didn't lead to the marriages that I see my friends have when they picked godliness over attraction. It doesn't mean you don't need to be attracted. You do, but it needs to be in the right order, because I was looking for self-worth in my physical appearance, which then means you look for your worth in somebody else's physical appearance, because you attract what you attract.
What I love about your story, and we're going to keep coming up on this engagement, is you were in the porch, you were serving, and yet deep down, like, these are these major wounds just lurking.
Yeah.
Why did they not get changed or exposed just because you were in a Christian environment? Like, how are they still able to kind of drive you all the way to, engage around the ring with someone that you don't even love, and you still really struggle with your body? Like, how did that happen? Because the average churchgoer would just assume, like, well, I would just assume those things change, like God heals you, but they didn't after years of being in a really awesome environment.
Because I never surrendered. It was, I never fully gave God my body, which means I never fully gave him my relationship status, because I didn't trust that God was bigger and better and kinder and more loving than me clinging to control. And those were the two things that I couldn't let go. Those were the things that I was like, no, like, I need to prove my worth by looking a certain way. And whoever I date proves to myself that the little lie that I believed in third grade isn't true. And so it was just the fact that, God, I know you're good. I know you're better. But it's those two things. It's like that little image of that girl holding the teddy bear in front of her saying, like, no, like, God, I want it. But God's like, I promise you there's better when you let go. Like, I promise you there's better when you go my route and give me your body as a living sacrifice, as it talks about in Romans, and go in the direction that I'm leading you rather than what you think is good for you. Like, I promise you it's better. But I couldn't, and still battled the lie every day. Like I still couldn't fathom, because the enemy's like, the grit has been in me for so long of like, unless you're thin, you won't be loved. And so I think it was this weird thing of like, I have to keep this because he chose me when I wasn't my thinnest. And if I don't keep this, I'm not what I used to look like. So then I'll never be chosen. And it was the
Wow.
fear of rejection that drove me to keep. And let me say, like, he was a good guy, but he wasn't my guy, which then made it turbulent. You know what I'm saying? If you're not with the right person, it's going to be like this if it's not who God has for you.
Well, walk me through. So you have the ring on your finger. What happened? And yeah,
It takes a lot of
you're not
courage
married
to
to
walk
him
away.
right now. So
Yeah.
what happened?
Gosh, yeah. So we got engaged, bachelor style, swept me off my feet, all the things. And I remember being like, this man didn't choose me for the real me, because I became everything he needed me to be in order to be chosen.
Wow. Yes.
And it was like
Oh my
that little, like,
goodness.
and the thing is, like, I was leading women, but it was like that lie. It's that one, it was my core lie that I believed since I was a kid that I couldn't fully get over. And it was just, I got engaged and I was like, I don't think you know me. And so when we started planning a wedding, we couldn't agree on one thing. Like, not one thing could we agree on. And I was like, dang, we have completely different views for our future. And then, I mean, the biggest part of my story is that Hebrews 11, I remember reading it and I told him I need a break. Like, I literally need a break from this relationship. I don't know if I can do this full time. Like, I don't know if I can do this forever. And I remember I asked for a 2-week break and I read Hebrews 11. And it's the by faith Hall of Fame chapter in the Bible. And I literally read, by faith, I'm asking you to walk away. And it was like an out of body, like I started shaking and started sobbing, because now it literally was, are you going to trust my words over your wants? And are you going to be obedient? And it was just this moment of, like, we see in the Old Testament, it's God always says, remember, remember, remember. And I said, you spoke over me freshman year of college and you said that I'm going to use you one day. And I was like barely doing anything at the time, but I was like, you kept your promise then. Therefore, I trust that you're going to keep your promise now. I don't know what it means to walk away from this. I might be single forever. No one may ever choose me, but you're God and I'm not. And if you're saying walk away, who am I to say no? And I called it off the next day and I've never seen him since.
Wow. Never seen him since. Okay. So first of all, that's amazing. I love that you point out that, like, he was married to a version of you that, or wasn't married. He was engaged to a version of you that you were like that wasn't even authentic. That wasn't even real. That maybe, like, that wasn't even you. Like, it was you in the flesh, your body, but it wasn't you in your spirit and soul, because you were kind of like proving it, faking it, like just molding yourself to be whatever it was that he needed so that he would stay with you. I can relate to so much of that, Nicoletta, and so many women can, because I think that we just so desperately want that beautiful ending and that specific guy that, like, I will do anything to keep it and prove myself. And I had a mentor say to me years ago when I was doing this with a guy, and she said, the guy I truly did think I was going to marry, and she was like, do you want to believe that this man is only with you because you are waving your hands in front of his face, reminding him of how amazing you are all the time?
Yeah.
Or do you want to know that the man is with you because his heart is ignited to choose you, all of you, because he knows all of you and will see you through the good, bad, and ugly of every season of your life? And I was like, yeah, I want that. And she's like, so, but what you've given him is this version of yourself that just does anything to, like, please him and make him feel that, remind him that you're amazing.
Wow.
And do whatever it is. Like, I'm like, he likes that meal. I don't like cooking. I'll make that meal for him, and it's like, whatever it was, just to keep him to not leave me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did not marry that Kate.
Yeah,
for
Jason
sure.
did not marry that version of me. He's like, when do you cook? Anyway. But okay, let's flash forward. So, this was, I don't know how long ago, but you run this ministry today. You're like a powerful single woman running this ministry, helping other women change their lives.
Wait a second. You walked away from this engagement. It's the foundation of your life. And a year later, there wasn't a new guy and you're not engaged in, like, there's no reconciled perfect story.
Yeah. So
at this moment?
what I think is crazy is that he actually got married very quickly. Like he got married,
Wow.
he was engaged twice in 1 year and got married like very quickly. And so it was just this like overwhelming like pain of like, wait a
Mm.
minute. Not only am I not getting my fairy tale, but you're also getting your fairy tale. And now I'm sitting here still sad, still
Wow.
heartbroken. God, what are you
Yeah.
doing? And
Because you're the one who obeyed God. So you would think like, all
I
right.
get the treasure, you know what I'm saying? Because that's how God works. You're obedient, and then God gives you whatever you want. Am I right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Come
all the
on.
ladies and men said amen. That's
And
how
we
it
can
works.
end the
That's what the
podcast on
reward of
that one.
obedience is. Like you get a happy ending
Yeah.
immediately after.
Yeah.
No.
And the thing is that God is so kind because in the last 5 years of my life, he has ripped out that little girl and he has like removed that. And to be honest, it's really sweet. And then I feel like I was even telling my friend the other night, I go, I can't wait for the next relationship that the Lord has for me because I will not falter on who I am and how God has made me because I know my worth in Christ. And honestly, like that's why I called my ministry Noble. Because when you know that you're the daughter of a king, you walk into rooms with your head held high. When you know that you're noble, the daughter of a king, your guy doesn't like you. Great. That doesn't play into my worth and my identity because what God made is good. And that just means you're not my guy. When you know that you're noble, the daughter of a king, it changes who you date, how you spend your weekends, who you spend your time with, who you date. And what I've seen in the last 5 years is truly, like I say this all the time, the ministry that I have built is my testimony. Like to a T, the curriculum and the programs I have built is I remember reading Genesis 1 through 3 on the floor the same night that I heard the Lord say, you will go through every type of eating disorder. I circled every single word in Genesis 1 through 3 and I saw the enemy. Like I literally feel like I saw a play of God and the enemy fighting over me. And I remember pounding the ground saying he will not win. And in the last 5 years, like, yes, it was singleness. Yes, I have dated guys since that I truly thought I was going to marry. Like I remember the next guy I dated, he told me he wanted to marry me. I thought it was it and it wasn't. And I was like, why is obedience leading me to being single at 32, which a lot of women consider their worst nightmare? But for me, genuinely, and I don't say this is like cheesy. I'm like, you have built, and I say this all the time, broken engagement was the firm foundation for the rest of my life. And I will never settle. But he has given me heart surgery. He has given me eye surgery. I don't settle anymore. Doesn't mean I don't struggle with body image. I walk with a limp every single day. But even in this season today, like my body is in a place that I don't recognize. But I'm like, man, I would rather have a guy that enters into my life and says, I'm proud of the woman you are today, fighting the lies and your body looks different than being engulfed in them and look like the world. And I won't settle until the Lord brings that man into my life, which I have no doubt he will. But I'm like, man, I'm enough. Like, I'm like worthy of a man that loves the Lord, not someone who looks like the world. And like, man, ladies, if you're listening to this, like hear it loud and clear from someone who got the guy that probably you're dreaming of. Ephesians 3:20 says that he does abundantly more than you can ask or imagine. And I got what my brain as a third grader said, this is what I imagine as the goal. And I got it, but God does abundantly more than I can ask or imagine. Trust in him. Like fix your eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen, because what is seen is temporary. What is unseen is eternal. Like God is better than the guy that you so desperately are changing for in order to be chosen from.
So powerful, girl. Man, I just love your story. I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
I just want to know today, what is God teaching you in this season of waiting? Like, what is God teaching you today? I have no doubt, Nicoletta, that we're going to have you on. I don't know how much time, but in the future, and you're going to share your testimony and it's going to be like amazing. It already is. But I mean, like, you're going to share also like the kind of guy that you did find, you know, in breaking off that engagement and healing through body image and just what the Lord did. And I'm so excited for that story too. Not that that one is better than this one, by the way.
Totally.
It's just another chapter.
It's just another chapter, but I would love to know, what is the Lord showing you, teaching you in this current season of waiting still?
Yeah. So I think this is actually like a really sweet thing that he teach me because it's so lined up to everything I just said. But one of my friends voice memoed me because I'm going to be honest, I'm a pretty content single girly just because I'm like, man, like I've had it. It didn't satisfy. And so I'm not going to settle anymore. So I'd rather be single than settle. So genuinely, like, I feel like my friends are like, how is Nicoletta fine? I'm like, I just trust the Lord. Like, I really do. But in the last week, I have just been struggling, like, just full transparency, just been like, oh my gosh, like, is this ever going to happen? I feel like I'm seeing all my friends get the Ephesians 3:20 guy that they've been praying for. And one of my friends, I just confessed, I was like, man, like, I am believing the lie again that I'm not enough. That if I just was thinner, if I just was better, if I just was, honestly, like, now the enemy gets me with, if you were less godly, you would be chosen, which is crazy. And and I feel like my friend said, Nicoletta, my encouragement and challenge for you is to stand firm in the belief that my God can, my God will, and my God wants to, because he's kind and he's good. And to continue putting your feet down, going like, no, like, I am worthy of being chosen. And like, put that as a stake in the ground, because when you put that as a stake in the ground, you will never settle. Because when you know, like, man, like, I am good, I am lovable, like, I am fun, like, I am beautiful, I am worthy. Like, when someone comes in and you believe that about yourself, you're not going to settle for Joe Schmo anymore.
Yeah.
And it comes along with like the conviction of God.
You don't have to sell yourself either.
Exactly.
You know, like, if you know it, you don't have to sell it and have someone else like you to convince yourself that you have to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I just want to say too, like, in that last lie you said, if I was less godly, I'd have more options. You know what's funny about that lie? It's true.
It's true.
It's true. You would have a much bigger pool. And that's the thing I see, especially with women. The godlier you get, the smaller that pool gets of quality men who can partner and pastor and lead with you. Mm-hmm. And that's great. That's amazing. Like, that is the best thing that ever happened to you. And because you're not looking for 1,000 men, you're only looking for one. Mm-hmm. You know, you're good. You're just looking for one. And you're telling me one doesn't exist. You're telling me one male version of Nicoletta, 32 years old, doesn't exist.
Yeah, I hope so. And something the other day, and I can land with this, but it said that we often make reality based on the facts. So, for example, the facts are, I'm 32, I'm single, I am not married, I'm not having kids. So we base our reality on the facts. No. We base our reality on our interpretation of the facts. You see what I'm saying? So I can look at the facts, but the way I interpret them is how I behave. I'm 32 and single. I'm not having kids yet. I'm unlovable. I'm worthy. God's cruel. God's withholding. And it's actually funny. I have my little note card next to me right here. And I'll sometimes do this. And I'll just be like, God, like, what do you want me to know about my dating relationship? And I found this week. I wrote this down a week ago. And the Lord literally brought it to mind. And he goes, the enemy is going to tempt you to believe that I'm withholding, but I'm watering, and you can trust slow growth. Don't listen to the enemy telling you that I'm withholding, I'm caring, I'm orchestrating, I'm writing, and I'm molding, and I'm teaching. And before you know it, you will be a strong oak tree that nobody can move. And it's like, man, guys, like, God is not withholding. The number one lie that the enemy is going to tell you is he's withholding. We see it in the very beginning of the Bible. The lie, he's not creative. He's just consistent. And so, like, man, let's be women that say, like, no. Not withholding, because my God doesn't withhold. And let that be the freaking stake in the ground, and then see how you handle singleness, because it'll change.
Amen. Amen. I heard such a good analogy there that other day. It's actually from JP's book, Your Story as a Villain, but they were growing trees in the perfect environment, perfect biome. And
I read this morning. Keep going.
It's so good. Yeah. But after a certain amount of time, these trees in the perfect environment would fall over. Mm-hmm. And you know what they were missing?
What?
Roots.
Wind.
Oh,
they were missing wind, and because they didn't have any wind, they didn't have any roots.
Yes,
that were strong enough and that had established themselves over time.
Well, because the challenge of having to stay firm and have those deep roots,
the wind,
they didn't have to have deep roots because there's no wind.
Amen.
Okay, hey, there's nothing challenging me to stand sturdy.
Exactly. So that's exactly what I thought of as you said that. Man, what an amazing word of just your roots growing deeper, and what better place for them to grow, and especially in terms of eternity, and that's what I keep coming back to. In terms of eternity, what better place for your roots to grow? Like in an eternity, when you're looking back at your human life over thousands and thousands of years, whether it was 32, 35, 39, 40s, it happened. I just don't know if we're really going to care that much.
We're not. We're
I think
literally
we're just
not.
going to be grateful to be in eternity. You know, so that eternal mindset, I can just see that in you, over you as you speak, and just I want to call it out and encourage you. So, man, that was so special.
I know. You're a special gal, an amazing, amazing woman.
Y'all, truly, thanks for letting me come on. I love your ministry. I love what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. And like, I love that this has become something that you guys do together, because we need to be reminded that good marriages still exist and still can happen. And it's just like so cool. And just a picture of like, gosh, like heaven. Like it's literally the kingdom coming down to earth. And so it's really, really cool to know you guys and be on this podcast. I feel so honored, and I'll come back anytime, especially when the Lord does abundantly more than I can ask or imagine. But that's also like today, like that's what the Lord spoke over me this week. He goes, don't think that I'm going to, I am.
Yeah.
I am doing abundantly more than you can ask or imagine today. So don't miss that.
Today. Yeah. So
well, the real question is, you're a little influencer girl. Things are going well. You're in Dallas. And obviously the next logical step is
Franklin,
Nashville.
Tennessee. Oh, yeah, Nashville.
I was like, is it marriage? I thought we were talking about
No. JJ's trying to convince you to move here.
Nashville.
Naturally.
Girl, I'm trying to go back to California. Come on
Yeah.
now.
No. You don't want to go to with the Democrats in California. Don't you know it's like
JJ, stop.
it's like a third world in
Stop
California.
it there. No, don't talk. Oh, you're saying what people down here say. Yeah. Cut it out, Scott. Cut it. No, I'm just kidding. Well, we love you, Nicoletta. You're the best. Thank you for sharing today. You were amazing.
Of course, y'all. Thanks for having me on.
The Heart of Dating podcast is created by Kate and JJ Tomlin. Shout out to our epic audio and video editor, Scott Caro. We have an amazing Heart of Dating team who helps bring the show to you each week. I want to shout out Elena Gibson, our brand and community manager. Now, if you guys have never ranked us or reviewed us on iTunes or Spotify, would you consider doing that? It would mean so much, because our podcast can get more discovered and more people can learn how to better date as Christians. Don't we all want that? We launch our podcast each and every week on Wednesdays, so we will see you next week.